Hey everyone, before we dive into this absolutely mind-blowing story, if you love true crime mysteries that keep you on the edge of your seat, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and smash the like icon. It really helps the channel grow and brings you more incredible investigations like this one. Now, settle in, because what I'm about to tell you will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice, time, and the secrets buried beneath small-town America. Picture this. It's 1947, and the small town of Gonzalez, Louisiana, sits quietly among sugarcane fields and swampy lowlands, where the air hangs thick with heat and the earthy scent of wet soil. Life moves slowly here, predictable and peaceful, or so everyone believes. In a modest two-story white house with a faded gray tin roof, the Hamilton family lives their quiet lives. Barton, a 41-year-old accountant at a local lumber mill, his wife Christine, 38, who takes in sewing work for the neighborhood church, and their 22-year-old son Charles, the brightest young man in the area, studying engineering in Baton Rouge. To everyone who knows them, the Hamiltons are the picture of stability. Polite, helpful, keeping to themselves but always ready to lend a hand when needed. Early July rolls around, and the town buzzes with anticipation for the 4th of July celebrations. Flags flutter along the main street, fresh paint brightens the church fence, and even the Hamilton porch sports a few patriotic red, white, and blue ribbons. On that particular evening, the air feels heavier than usual, steam rising from the ground and mixing with the lingering smell of kitchen smoke. Neighbors notice the Hamilton house lights stay on later than normal. Some later recall hearing a door slam shut, something heavy dropping to the floor, then nothing, just silence, broken only by the gentle patter of a light rain beginning to fall, a rain soft enough to muffle any other sound that might have followed. When dawn breaks, the street remains eerily quiet. No movement from the White House, curtains drawn tight, no smoke curling from the chimney. Barton's black Ford sits untouched in the garage, exactly where it belonged. The milkman passes by and notices yesterday's bottles still sitting on the front step, uncollected. By mid-morning, one of Christine's sewing friends stops by to return some fabric, knocks repeatedly, gets no answer, walks around back. Kitchen door locked from the inside too. In a town this small, unease spreads faster than wildfire. A whole family missing since first light? That's unheard of. Neighbors check for Charles. Nothing. People start asking questions. Did anyone see the Hamiltons leave? Did they mention going somewhere? Everyone shakes their heads. By noon, under a brutal, unforgiving sun, relatives arrive, try the front door, the back door, every entrance. Everything locked from the inside. They shout. No reply. Whispers race down the little street, mixing with the drone of cicadas and that persistent smell of wet earth from the night's rain. Finally, when every attempt to reach them fails, a neighbor walks straight to the police station downtown to report that Barton, Christine, and apparently Charles Hamilton have vanished. No one knows where, and their house has gone terrifyingly, unnervingly silent. The report gets logged, and Sheriff Walter Duvall takes the case. That afternoon, he leaves headquarters with a deputy in the department's old Plymouth and drives the dirt road south to the Hamilton place. On the way, he remarks how the air still hangs heavy after last night's rain, gray clouds blanketing the sky. When the car stops in front of the White House, several neighbors are already waiting at the gate, faces tight with worry, eyes tracking every move the lawman makes. Duvall walks through the gate and scans the yard. Grass still wet, a few shallow shoe prints in the soft dirt. Yesterday's milk bottles still on the step. Front door shut, curtains closed. No sound from inside. He knocks 3 times. Nothing. The deputy circles to the back. Kitchen door locked from the inside. No marks. Duvall crouches by the front lock, undisturbed. Paint around the edges unscratched. In the garage, Barton's black Ford sits exactly where it belongs. A thin layer of dust on the hood, tires settled in the same tracks. No sign any other vehicle has been there. Duvall jots preliminary notes, calls out one more time. Only hollow echoes answer. As he turns away, the front door suddenly cracks open, and Charles Hamilton steps out. Shirt wrinkled, hair messy, looking exhausted. He says he's been home all morning and assumes his parents left early the previous day for a cabin on Lake Maurepas with 2 friends. Duvall asks for the friends' names. Charles is vague, Says they were work contacts of his father's. Can't recall addresses. Duvall writes it down, then asks to step inside. Charles reluctantly agrees and moves aside. The living room is tidy. 2 cold coffee cups sit on the dining table. Newspaper open. Tablecloth undisturbed. Duvall walks the hallway, checks every room. Windows locked from inside. Beds made flat. No signs of struggle, nothing moved. In the master bedroom, closet closed. No missing suitcases. Christine's jewelry box untouched. He has the deputy photograph everything and mark object positions. The place is too neat. It unsettles him. Back in the living room, he presses Charles for more details about the trip, departure time, transportation, who picked them up. Charles answers slowly, voice even, no visible emotion or panic. Duvall watches him closely, then closes his notebook. He finds no evidence of a crime, yet he can't shake the wrongness of the house. Frozen in a half-finished moment, no trace of people about to leave town. On the porch, he checks the locks again, scans the yard and fence. Nothing but heavy silence and late afternoon light on the wet steps. He has neighbors witness and sign the report confirming doors locked from inside. House orderly, no forced entry, vehicle in place. The first report is finished on the spot with the temporary conclusion. Missing, cause unknown. As he packs up, Duvall looks back at the house one last time. No sound except wind in the trees and the faint creak of the metal gate, as if the place itself is hiding something he can't yet name. Back at headquarters, Sheriff Walter Duvall spends the afternoon verifying everything Charles has said. According to the Sun, Barton and Christine left early to spend a few days at a cabin on Lake Maurepas, picked up by friends in their own car. Duvall pulls records of rentals around the lake. Nothing under Hamilton or anything matching the description. Cabins back then were watched by locals. No one remembers seeing a couple that fits. He phones the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. No traffic incidents involving Barton's car or anyone matching their description. No recent accidents on the roads either. He checks with Barton's lumber mill. Barton hasn't shown up since yesterday morning and never missed work without calling. Completely out of character. The foreman says no one at the mill knows any friends by the names Charles has vaguely mentioned. Duvall notes, companions unverified, no planned or confirmed trip. He calls the church sewing shop where Christine worked part-time. She had orders due by the weekend and had never mentioned leaving town. A coworker says Christine was supposed to drop off finished pieces the previous morning to get paid. No sign she was packing or going anywhere. Duvall sends men door to door again. Neighbors confirm the Hamiltons' lights were on late, but no one actually saw them leave. One man 3 houses down thought he heard a car pass around midnight, but wasn't sure whose. Back at his desk, Duvall compares everything to the scene report. Nothing supports the idea that Barton and Christine had left Gonzalez. The Ford's tires show no fresh tracks, engine stone cold, hasn't moved in at least 24 hours. Barton's personal journal, recovered from the house, last entry 2 days earlier. Call accounting office, no mention of any trip. Post office confirms no unusual mail in or out. Piece by piece, the picture contradicts the Sun's story. Charles insists his parents left willingly. No one else can confirm it. Duvall stares out the window at the darkening sky and rewrites the initial report, crossing out missing, cause unknown, and adding, preliminary verification complete. No evidence subjects left locality. Recommend expanded search phase. He closes the file, tells the deputy to ready a search team, and sends formal notice up to the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office. Missing persons case? Gonzalez, Louisiana. Search to commence. The next morning, after clearance from the parish, Sheriff Walter Duvall launches a full-scale search around Lake Maurepas, the supposed final destination. Notices go to every local department, calling in auxiliary police, water rescue teams, and civilian volunteers. Local hunters show up with flat-bottom boats, spotlights, and tracking dogs. A quick briefing is held in the station yard. Duvall lays a big map across a patrol car hood and divides the lake into sectors with red pencil. West side for sheriff's deputies, south and northeast for hunters and volunteers. Open water for 2 rescue boats. Objective: any sign of a cabin, vehicle, or belongings tied to the Hamiltons. At sunrise, the teams move out. The road to Lake Maurepas twists through swamp, thick trees on both sides, insects buzzing, air heavy with mud. Duval rides in the lead boat, a small wooden skiff with an outboard, along with 2 deputies and a local hunter. The water is dark, the surface mirror flat under a gray sky, tall reeds blocking the view. The hunter occasionally points west to old logging trails now overgrown, wide enough years ago for a car, but swallowed by grass. On shore, dog teams work the few dry ridges, but most of the area is flooded and treacherous. By noon, the north and west sectors are cleared. Nothing. Duval calls a break and sets up a checkpoint at the Treeline to collect reports. Road patrols check highways for any strange vehicles from the night in question. Also nothing. Rescue boats keep probing the water with poles and drag nets. Duval notes terrain conditions. Deep mud bottom, sudden drop-offs, dark pockets deeper than 10 feet, slow current but dangerous undertows. He writes, dense swamp, limited access, need more small boats and local guides. By afternoon, the southern team returns with a few random finds. White-painted scrapwood, a rusted tin can, old rope, none relevant. No cabins exist in the area, no tire tracks, no roads to the shore. Hunters confirm the place has been empty of structures for years. As the sun drops behind distant trees, Duval calls it for the day, has teams mark searched areas with bamboo stakes and red cloth, then stands alone on the bank, staring across the flat water, turning copper in the sunset. No cabin, no vehicle signs, no witnesses. Every lead dead ends exactly where he'd hoped for answers. In his daily log, he writes, no secondary scene located. Area vast, swamp, deep, visibility poor. Recommend expanding search radius 10 miles around lake. As the teams pull out, outboard motors and barking dogs fade into the dusk, leaving only wind and dark water reflecting a thin moon. Like the lake itself is refusing to answer the question. The whole town still can't. The next morning, the search resumes with an expanded scope toward the southwest of Lake Maurepas, where the water is deeper and thick with reeds. A team of local hunters along with 2 police officers is dispatched in wooden boats to sweep the low shoreline, the area where currents typically wash up debris and floating objects. The sky is hazy with mist, the sunlight dull as it reflects off the mud-scented surface of the lake. Duval stands on the command boat, observing and noting the coordinates marked with bamboo stakes. Around mid-morning, one of the search boats radios that they've spotted a strange object caught in the reeds at the western edge of the shore. Duval immediately directs his boat to the location. When they arrive, they discover a small dark object, half buried in the wet grass, covered with a thin layer of mud. A woman's medium-sized leather handbag, its brass clasp already rusted. Duval orders no one to touch it until the scene is photographed. Then it can be collected. An officer wearing rubber gloves carefully lifts the bag from the grass and places it on a metal tray. The bag is closed, its surface caked with mud, undamaged with the strap intact. Duval closely examines the direction of the current and notes that the mud is heavier on the front side, indicating the object had drifted from the shore rather than from the middle of the lake. He writes, likely thrown from the western shore, less than 24 hours ago. The bag is opened for a preliminary inspection on site under a tarp. Inside are a small wallet, a few paper bills, business cards printed with the name Barton Hamilton, accountant, address, Gonzalez, along with a set of metal keys attached to a wooden tag engraved with the letter H. There's also a handkerchief embroidered with the initials CH and a lipstick tube with a broken cap. Everything is neatly placed in the tray and photographed item by item according to procedure. Duval leans in for a closer look. The bottom inside the bag is dry, only the edges damp, and the mud smell is fresh. He concludes the bag could not have been floating long and was likely thrown in recently. When he asks the search team, no one recalls seeing the object the previous day, even though the western shore had already been given a preliminary sweep. That detail catches Duval's particular attention. He orders a seizure report drawn up, assigns the temporary evidence code E4703, signs it on the spot, seals the bag in a designated cloth evidence bag, and affixes the Ascension Parish Sheriff's seal. An officer films the entire process. Duval stands at the edge of the reeds, watching the slow-moving murky water, sensing something is off. The location where the bag was found does not match the wind direction or current from the previous night, meaning the object had not drifted from far away but was most likely placed there intentionally. He has the shoreline checked and finds faint adult footprints leading down from the dirt road. But the mud has dried and is not clear enough to identify the shoe type. Duval orders the area cordoned off within a 50-meter radius to search for additional related items. But they find only a few rotten leaves and drifting trash. Once finished, he has the evidence transported back to headquarters and handed over to the technical division. That afternoon, in the parish's temporary laboratory, the handbag is reopened under bright white light. The preliminary report confirms no traces of blood or biological tissue. The mud on the exterior matches soil samples taken from the western shore. No standing water inside the bag, indicating the object had not been fully submerged but was thrown or placed near the water's edge. The business cards and keys match information in the Hamilton file. Duval records the findings in the day's consolidated report. Personal handbag belonging to Christine Hamilton discovered on the western shore of Lake Maurepas. No damage, no signs of robbery, likely discarded from the shore. No cabin or vehicle located within the search area. After signing the report, he circles in red the final note. First authenticated evidence. Possible criminal connection. In a brief meeting with the search team leaders, Duval announces a temporary halt to water surface dragging to focus on the western shoreline and shifts the case status from missing persons, cause unknown, to missing persons, suspected criminal activity. He looks down at the worn map where a red circle marks the handbag's discovery point, isolated amid the vast expanse of reeds. For the first time since taking the case, Duval feels the line between a simple disappearance and a criminal investigation beginning to blur. In the report sent to the parish office, he ends with, based on evidence item E4703, the Hamilton case is reclassified for special investigation. Search of the Lake Maurepas area will continue with expanded scope the following day. As soon as the first piece of evidence reaches headquarters, Sheriff Walter Duval spends the entire evening reviewing the full file and the statements Charles Hamilton has provided. He spreads out the map of the Lake Maurepas area, marks the handbag's location, and compares it to the routes out of Gonzalez that Charles had described in the initial interview. The statement claimed Barton and his wife left home in a friend's car heading north along the Levee Road, then taking a small highway toward the lake region. However, highway patrol reports confirm no witnesses had seen an unfamiliar vehicle in that area that night. Gas stations and roadside stores are questioned. No one has seen a couple matching their description. Duval also sends inquiries to neighboring parishes, Livingston and Tangipahoa, asking for information about any couple traveling with a younger person in recent days, but all responses are negative. He rereads the on-scene report inside the Hamilton house. No suitcases, no luggage, no signs of preparation for a trip. Based on that, Duval concludes the vacation cabin story is becoming increasingly implausible. Meanwhile, Christine's handbag has been found at Lake Maurepas with no signs of robbery or theft, making voluntary departure highly unlikely. He summons Charles to the station for another session, this time formally as the primary informant in the missing persons case. The interview takes place in a small office with only Duval and a note-taking assistant present. Duval re-asks about the departure time, who they left with, the vehicle, and why the parents chose to leave on a holiday. Charles repeats most of what he has already said. They went with his father's friends, an acquaintance couple from Baton Rouge, early the previous morning. He stayed behind to watch the house. Duval presses for more details about the cabin, on which shore it was, any name or distinguishing features. But Charles says he has never been there and only heard his parents mention it. When informed that no cabin was registered under the Hamilton name or any known associates, Charles pauses, then says his father might have rented it through someone else. Duval looks him straight in the eye and asks about the last time he saw his parents. When exactly did they leave the house? Charles says when he woke up they were already gone and had only left a note on the kitchen table. But when Duval asks where the note is, he replies, "I probably threw it away after reading it." That answer is recorded verbatim in the transcript and underlined in red ink. After the interview ends, Duval sits rereading every line. Every detail Charles provided is unverifiable. No witnesses confirmed seeing them on the road, no cabin existed, and no vehicle was observed leaving the Hamilton house in that time frame. Neighbor reports state the house lights remained on until late, then went dark, but no one heard an engine start. A woman living across the street clearly recalls stepping onto her porch around midnight because her dog was barking. She saw the front door closed and no headlights shining from the garage. All those statements, when cross-referenced with the still-parked Ford and the handbag found near the lake, convinced Duvall that Barton and Christine Hamilton never left Gonzalez in the manner their son described. He compiles all the data into a summary table with 3 columns: statement, verification results, discrepancies. The first column lists Charles's account of the trip and the mysterious friends. The second records responses from lodges, local authorities, and witnesses around the lake. The third simply reads, "No match. Does not exist. No witnesses." When the table is complete, the final note contains only one line: "No evidence of departure from the area." Duvall understands this can no longer be treated as an ordinary missing persons case. He closes the file, pulls a formal form from the drawer, and fills in the new case title, Hamilton Missing Persons Suspicious Case. With black ink, he underlines the word suspicious to emphasize the special status. In his duty log for that day, he adds a few lines. Victim's son's statements lack supporting evidence. No couple confirmed encountering the Hamiltons in the Lake Maurepas area. Neighbors confirmed no vehicle left the house. Based on evidence and scene cross-checks, case reclassified as suspected criminal. Duvall carefully sets the file aside, looks up at the wall map where Lake Maurepas is circled in red. Every road from Gonzalez to the lake has been checked, and there is no trace except for that one small handbag. In his mind, a hypothesis is forming, not yet solid enough to voice, but strong enough to convince him that something terribly wrong has happened inside that white-painted house on the hot night the whole town still believes had been peaceful. After completing the case reclassification paperwork and submitting the report to the parish office, Sheriff Walter Duvall decides to take the next step: obtain an official search warrant for the Hamilton family home. The collected facts show clear contradictions between statements and evidence, and verifying the scene has become necessary to either rule out or confirm criminal suspicions. The warrant is approved by the district court the following morning, authorizing a full search of the residence and surrounding property. Duvall arrives with 2 officers and a forensic technician just after sunrise. The neighborhood is still quiet. The White House looks exactly as it had on their first visit. He orders temporary barricades set up, restricts access, and invites a neighboring resident to witness the unlocking. After confirming all windows are locked from the inside, Duvall has the front door opened with Charles Hamilton's key. The moment they step inside, the air feels heavy with dampness and smoke. Dim light filters through thick curtains. He instructs no one to touch anything until the entire interior is photographed. The assistant sets up the Rolleiflex camera and begins documenting every corner. In the living room, they find the small coffee table tipped over, one leg broken, a fresh crack visible. Beneath it, the rug bears a palm-sized brownish stain, evenly spread and darker than the fabric. Duvall crouches to examine it, shines a flashlight close, and notes, "Unidentified stain, possibly dried liquid." He has the technician cut out the stained section of rug and seal it in an evidence bag. On the dining table, the 2 coffee cups remain exactly as he had first seen them, now covered with a thin layer of dust, confirming no one has touched them in days. In the corner, the brick fireplace still holds light-colored ash. The surface is fine and has not yet turned completely gray. Duvall asks the technician, who confirms the ash looks recent and unusual, mixed with tiny metal fragments and bits of ceramic. He uses tweezers to collect several pieces into a vial labeled A471. An additional ash sample is taken for comparison. Shining the light deeper into the hearth, Duvall detects a strange burnt smell, not entirely that of burning wood. He records the detail in his notebook. Continuing through the dining room and hallway, they find no missing items or signs of forced entry. In the master bedroom, the bed is neatly made, but small porcelain shards lie on the floor, possibly from a broken cup. He collects them, labeled B472. Charles's room is tidy, nothing unusual except a cardboard box containing technical books and a few drawings. The entire downstairs is photographed from 4 angles. Every piece of potential evidence is marked with a ruler and identifier on the floor. When the team moves to the back porch, Duvall notices a small scratch on the door frame, knee-high with slight paint flaking, but not enough to determine the cause. He scrapes off a bit of paint and wood with a thin blade and seals it separately. The entire morning passes in near silence, broken only by camera shutters and the rustle of the technician's notes. By midday, the interior search is complete, and the samples are sealed in 4 separate bags. The stained rug, ash and metal fragments from the fireplace, porcelain shards from the bedroom, and the door frame with sample. All are signed by Duval and countersigned by the witness. He stands in the living room one last time, surveying the house. Everything appears carefully arranged, no chaos, no obvious signs of violence. Yet the perfect stillness gives him the feeling that real evidence has been hidden beneath this tidy surface. Before leaving, Duval has the technician reseal the doors and affix police tape. A temporary scene report is written on site describing overturned coffee table, brownish stain on rug suspected to be liquid, fresh ash in fireplace containing metal fragments, no signs of break-in, furnishings intact. As he leaves the house carrying the evidence bags, they feel heavier than their actual weight. He knows the small fragments collected that morning might be the first, albeit faint, clues to what happened inside that quiet home on the night 2 people suddenly vanished. The samples collected during the Hamilton house search are carefully sealed by Sheriff Walter Duval and sent the next morning to the State Forensic Laboratory in Baton Rouge, the unit equipped to handle complex or unclear cases with the most advanced analytical equipment available at the time. The receiving officer opens and inventories each bag. The stained rug, ash mixed with metal fragments, porcelain shards, and door frame sample. Each item is rephotographed and assigned its own code. Duval personally signs the transfer, emphasizing the brownish stain on the rug and the fireplace ash as the 2 most significant points. He leaves the lab with instructions to contact him the moment preliminary results are ready. During the waiting days, he continues reviewing statements and search maps, but no new leads emerge. By the end of the week, the lab telegraphs that analysis is complete and requests his presence for the detailed briefing. When Duval returns to Baton Rouge, the chief technician, a man about his age, leads him to a small conference room where the processed samples and typed report lie on the table. According to the report, the brownish stain on the rug does not react to reagents for human or animal blood, yielding only a neutral result, possibly some other dried organic substance such as coffee, wine, or mineral-rich water. There is no confirmation of blood. The fireplace ash shows unusual composition, higher than normal calcium levels, traces of lime compounds, a small amount of iron oxide, and metal impurities. The technician explains this could occur if wall plaster or ceramic items had been burned in the fireplace, but the exact source cannot be determined. The recovered metal fragments are brass alloy, too small to identify the original object. The bedroom porcelain shards are simply from a broken cup, unrelated to any organic material. The door frame, which shows no traces of violence or foreign paint, only natural scratching. The report concludes there is no definitive evidence of criminal activity or signs of a crime inside the Hamilton residence. The findings are stamped and signed by the 3 responsible technicians. Duval reads every line repeatedly, then asks to re-examine the ash under a microscope. He notices tiny white particles mixed with the black ash, but the technician confirms they are plaster fragments that could have fallen during normal fireplace use. Duval makes a private note: ash with high calcium, abnormal, source undetermined. Despite his lingering suspicion, he has to accept that the analysis provides no basis to open a criminal investigation. No blood, no signs of violence, no direct evidence. Under state regulations, the case can only be upgraded with concrete proof of injury or death. Duval signs for the return of all evidence, repackages it in sealed containers, and transports it back to the Ascension Parish evidence vault. On the drive back to Gonzalez, he sits in silence. Afternoon light filters through the windshield onto the thick file resting on his lap. He understands the investigation has to pause at the verification stage, and any further effort will require new information. At headquarters, he opens the evidence cabinet, places the box in the lock section, and labels it Hamilton Lab Results. Inconclusive. In that day's duty log, he writes, Baton Rouge forensic report shows no blood traces. Ash contains calcium and lime. No criminal evidence. File paused at monitoring level. Insufficient legal basis for criminal investigation. Then he closes the log, leans back in his chair, and feels the familiar weight of a case with no clear direction, where the collected fragments still refuse to form a complete picture. In the quiet room, lit only by the ticking clock and the fading late-day sun on the wooden desk, Duval knows that for now the Hamilton case will remain classified as an undetermined disappearance, and all his questions will have to wait for answers that might never come. The report from Baton Rouge yields no results that can advance the case, but Sheriff Walter Duvall still can't shake the feeling that something is off in Charles Hamilton's statement. 2 days after receiving the lab findings, he sends a summons for Charles to come back to the station for a second interview, aiming to test the consistency between his story and the circumstantial evidence already collected. The interrogation takes place in the small room at headquarters, with only Duvall, a note-taking deputy, and Charles present. The atmosphere is quiet, broken only by the steady tick-tock of the wall clock. Duvall begins with the familiar questions. What time did his parents leave the house? Who drove them? What did they take with them? Charles repeats that his parents had left early in the morning, picked up by a friend of his father's to go to a cabin on Lake Maurepas, taking 2 small suitcases and a grocery bag. Duvall jots notes and presses for details about the suitcases' color, size, who carried them. Charles hesitates, then says, "One was brown, the other maybe blue." Duvall compares this to the search inventory, which clearly states no suitcases were missing, the closets were intact, clothes neatly folded. He points this out and asks if perhaps his parents had left the suitcases in their friend's car. Charles just nods and adds nothing more. Duvall moves on to Christine's purse, found at Lake Maurepas. When he mentions the business cards and keyring inside, Charles looks surprised and says, "Maybe Mom took a different purse. Not that one." Duvall pauses, makes a quick note, then asks how many similar purses his mother owned. The answer is vague. "I don't remember, probably 2 or 3. She changed them a lot." Duvall keeps probing about the last time Charles saw his parents. He says they were already gone when he woke up, leaving only a short note on the kitchen table. Duvall asks if he still has the note. Charles says he threw it away after reading it because it just said they were going away for a few days. Duvall writes down the exact wording and underlines it in red ink just as he had before. He asks another question about the house. Who usually locked the door when leaving? Charles answers, "Usually my dad." But when Duvall asks why the door had been locked from the inside when he arrived, Charles doesn't answer right away and finally says, maybe his parents locked it by mistake and left through the back, even though Charles himself had already confirmed the back door was locked too. Duvall writes down the detail, slowly reads it back to Charles, and asks him to confirm. Charles stares at the table and nods reluctantly. Throughout the interview, Charles's voice stays steady, not trembling, but something in his eyes doesn't quite match his words. Duvall watches every blink, every slight shift in posture, cataloging it all. When the session ends, Charles leaves without another word, and Duvall sits alone with his thoughts, the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on him. And then 60 years later, a cold case investigator, reviewing those dusty, forgotten files, spots a tiny detail in the crime scene photos that everyone before her had overlooked. A detail so small, so easily missed, yet so significant that it could upend the entire case and reveal a truth no one could have imagined. Because sometimes, justice doesn't sleep. It just waits. And when it finally wakes, the truth it brings can shake a community to its very core. So what was that detail? What finally broke this case wide open after 6 decades of silence? That, my friends, is a story for another time. But if you want to be the first to know when we uncover it, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on, because you won't want to miss what comes next. Until then, keep questioning, keep searching, and remember, some secrets are buried deep, but none are buried forever.